2, 1. And welcome into the WKYC.com post-game show here on Facebook Live. I am Ben Axelrod. Joining me from 3 News Studios is Nick Camino. And Nick, we talked after the first week of the Cleveland Browns 2020 season. It was a 38-6 loss to the Baltimore Ravens. The sentiments of that show were very much in tune with here we go again, same old Browns, long season ahead. And here we are 17 weeks later, the Cleveland Browns 11-5, punching their tickets to the postseason, ending the NFL's longest active postseason drought, 17 years now in the books, with a 24-22 win over the Pittsburgh Steelers on Sunday. The Cleveland Browns moving on to the wild card round, where they will meet the Pittsburgh Steelers again next week. Nick, we'll get to the game, but what a season this has been.
Yeah, Ben, it's been an up and down roller coaster ride. I mean, I feel like this entire week too it felt like a marathon. It was really a microcosm of the entire season with everything that happened with COVID-19. You mentioned that show we did back in week 1. You said 17 weeks ago. It felt like 38 weeks ago. I mean, it's just like, it seems like forever ago. And, listen, I think Coach Kevin Stefanski and the staff and obviously ultimately the players, they deserve a lot of credit. I mean, the turnaround to have a team that's 11-5 going to the playoffs when this team has not been there since 2002. I know they've come close a couple different times, but what a remarkable job by them. And I know every team in the NFL had to deal with COVID-19 and all the protocols and everything throughout the season, but it just feels like the Browns did a remarkable job, getting this turned around, doing it really what felt like in one season to get to this point. So I know that they have said, and we've heard Baker talking after the game and Coach Stefanski saying they're not done yet. They have bigger goals. Maybe Browns fans don't want to hear this, but in my mind, they've done plenty. I mean, to me, everything else, they're playing with house money in my eyes. Everything else from now is a bonus. To make it back to the NFL playoffs is an incredible feat with everything they've been through as an organization. And hey, if they can go into Pittsburgh next week and get a win, great, and move on past that, that'd be awesome. But for me, they've done enough. What a season.
Yeah, I'm right there with you along those lines. I mean, going back to that week 1 loss to the Ravens, the Browns entering the season really were fighting an uphill battle when you take into account, COVID-19 and everything going on. That obviously affected every team in the NFL. But I think for a team like the Browns with a first-year head coach, a team with some moving parts on the roster, a quarterback learning a 4th playbook in 5 years, this was really like the worst season imaginable to have a first-year head coach. Lo and behold, you get to December and the Browns are 9-3 heading into that Monday Night Football game against the Ravens. And we're not just talking about the playoffs. We're talking about them maybe catching the Pittsburgh Steelers and winning the AFC North. But, certainly over the course of these last 2 weeks, they had some curveballs thrown at them. They go into last week's game against the Jets with, for all intents and purposes, no wide receivers on the roster, at least no wide receivers who had played in a game for the Browns. Then entering this week, they practiced for really 1 day all week. 6 players on the COVID list, 3 assistant coaches missing from the game. This was never going to be easy for this team. And, we saw down to the very last minute, they have to fight off a 2-point conversion from Mason Rudolph. They have to, get a first down with the Steelers having all 3 of their timeouts. I mean, this was a fight to the very end. And, lo and behold, inch by inch, play by play, the Browns got it done here.
Yeah, what you brought up at the beginning that probably doesn't get talked about enough, Stefanski taking over when he did, they had no sort of offseason. There was like no mini camps or nothing. I mean, they were going you're meeting this new coach and these new players all through Zoom, like me and you were talking on right now. It's like, how do you get any sort of system and flow going? So for them to do what they did in this sort of year is, I think you're right. It's even more impressive. No preseason. I mean, there was nothing. It's like that week 1 game against the Ravens. Now that I look back on it, I probably feel bad about some of the things I said afterward because it was an unfair spot to be in almost with a new head coach, as you mentioned, and Baker on a new coaching staff, a new playbook. So no, it's an incredible job by this team. Everything that they've done, they've earned. Can we pick apart certain things? Of course, you have no business losing to the Jets, even with the wideouts they were missing. And today probably shouldn't have been as close as it was. But you get the win. A win is a win is a win. You're going to the playoffs. And, hey, nobody can take that from you. And now you can go surprise some people, because even though this team wouldn't admit it, I know they say that they have bigger goals than this. And I believe that. I got to believe in the back of their mind somewhere, too, is they're kind of going with a house money mentality where they could probably take some risks next week. And, I don't think people are expecting them to win. The Steelers are a 4-point favorite already. I mean, and that number could go up. So I don't know that anyone's expecting them to win. So if they can go out there, play free and easy, I know the defense has struggled at times, and they've had their issues even offensively, not running the ball maybe enough today, but go in there and if you play with a house money approach, with a bonuses, everything the rest of the way approach, that's a dangerous team to play.
Yeah, I certainly agree. I mean, I look back to a year ago and the Tennessee Titans. Nobody, they were one of those teams that for a lot of people seemed to be, just happy to get in. And lo and behold, they wind up in the AFC title game because their formula for success carried over into the postseason, running the ball with Derrick Henry, and certainly with the Browns and what they're able to do with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. You can see some similarities there. The defense has to get on track. And I think the biggest thing I think we'll be keeping an eye on here for the next few hours is whether the Browns are going to be playing on Saturday or Sunday, because that might be the difference for whether or not Denzel Ward is able to play in the game after testing positive for COVID-19 last week. So we'll see. I think that's probably asking a lot to get him back out on the field. But, Saturday or Sunday, when you look at the minimum amount of time a player has to spend on the COVID list, it could make a big difference. Let's get to today's game, though. Going into this game, I think a lot of Browns fans, a lot of Browns observers, myself included, entering that first quarter, just knowing everything that was on the line, you win and you're in, a lot of nerves. And I think we saw that from the Browns. It looked like an anxious team. Obviously, Nick Chubb rips off the 47-yard touchdown run, but really the rest of the half, just, the Browns kind of, not doing much, just kind of seeming to not being able to find their footing. The Steelers, meanwhile, playing with a lot of backups in the game, playing with a backup quarterback. They didn't make a lot of big plays, but they did enough to kind of chip away at the Browns' lead. I said at halftime, and a lot of people, you're no stranger to people yelling at you on Twitter. I had a lot of people yelling at me on Twitter. I said Baker Mayfield's going to have to make some plays in the second half. And my mentions automatically filled up with, no, they have to feed Nick Chubb. They have to feed Nick Chubb. They have to feed Nick Chubb.
You were calming down the establish the run crowd, right? You were calming down the establish the run crowd, right?
Correct. Yeah, we've got to establish the run. Look, those two things do not have to be mutually exclusive. The Browns can give Nick Chubb the ball, but the reality is, with the whole half to play, I think the Browns were only up 4 points at halftime. The Baker Mayfield was going to have to make some plays, and I thought we saw him do just that. And ironically, it wasn't with his arm; it was more so with his legs.
Yeah, I mean, and when it comes down to it, he's going to have to make some plays now that they're in the postseason. That's what it comes down to. You need, and in a lot of sports, it's the same thing. When the postseason rolls around, when it's time for the playoffs, you need your star players to be your star players. Okay, you're not going to be relying on, just throwing a name out there, Austin Hooper. You're going to need your star players to be their star players in the playoffs. And if Baker can, do some of what he did today, that'll be great. And I do feel what you were saying with this Browns team. It was almost like the Steelers could go with that house money mentality because they knew they weren't supposed to win the game. They were kind of a dangerous team to play even without some of their star players playing. And the Browns, I think about what Eddie George told me a while ago, pressure burst pipes. And I feel like there was some pressure on the Browns and they were playing a little bit like it. So glad they were able to get the win, and they're probably relieved that this game is over with.
Yeah, and I thought there was a lot of symbolism in today's game. Obviously beating the Steelers, who's the team that beat the Browns in 2017 for the Browns to clinch an 0-16 season, doing that back at First Energy Stadium. I thought Jarvis Landry getting in the end zone was a nice touch since, he was one of those guys that John Dorsey brought over in 2018 that kind of, signaled the shift from we're not rebuilding anymore. We're moving forward. We're trying to win. And then obviously Baker Mayfield. I mean, this guy, at times for better or worse, has been this team's, the face of this franchise. He had his downs throughout last season. He's had his ups and downs this season, although I think at this point we can firmly say it's been more ups than downs. But for him to get that first down there with his legs and play the way he did in that second half, at least. I thought there was a lot of symbolism for the Browns in this win.
It was big. And the thing you want your team doing by the end of the season is really starting to peak. You want to be able to be playing your peak best football. And unfortunately, I think because of COVID-19 and all the disruptions, they haven't been able to do that. You saw it I'm trying to think of a wild card team in the NFL. You go back to like Eli Manning and the Giants. They got hot at the right time, and they started rolling people throughout the playoffs. And I almost feel like prior to that Baltimore game, or even after that Baltimore game, the Browns were playing such good football. And then now I don't want to say they've cooled off. I mean, they won a football game today to get into the playoffs, but I don't know if we're not seeing still the best version of this team that they've been talking about all year. We're going to see the best version of it. So, hopefully they're able to kind of find something, able to get some practice in this upcoming week and have finally that best version of this Steelers team that we've seen is beatable. I mean, they have a loss to the Washington football team. They've got, some losses earlier in the season, almost lost to the Ravens earlier in the year without any of their main guys playing. So, this is definitely a winnable game, a beatable team, but it will be much tougher with Big Ben under center now.
Yeah, and TJ Watt coming off the edge and Cam Hayward inside. But yeah, I mean, I think we're in agreement here. The Steelers are favored. They should be favored. I'm honestly surprised it's not by a little more, just when you consider that, like you said, the Browns have kind of quote unquote cooled off. The Steelers were able to clinch the division, get some rest. But I do think this team is beatable. Like you said, they kind of limped into this game. Just a brutal stretch. I think they played like 5 games in 25 days, which when you do the math on that is not how the NFL season was designed to be played. But the Browns have players. Myles Garrett can make game-changing plays. Nick Chubb can take over a game. Baker Mayfield, when he gets rolling, he's more than capable of conducting a well-oiled offense. So I'm with you. I think the Browns are playing with house money. I think that this season now is a success no matter what. I think it would have been a failure had they lost. They win. Instead, it's a success. And now you go into this game, like you said, playing with house money and the chance to pull off an upset that could really, make this a really, a season more special than what they're already enjoying.
Absolutely. It's already memorable. It's already a great turnaround. Hopefully now this is the trajectory that you want to see this franchise going in now the next couple of years. This is, nowhere to go but up now. You can't regress. This is a great starting spot, and hopefully they can continue that with a win in Pittsburgh this upcoming Saturday or Sunday. As you said, we don't know the time. We don't know the day, but we'll know, I believe, after tonight. Interesting game for Sunday Night Football. If Washington wins, they're in. If Philly somehow wins, would it be the New York Giants going to the playoffs? Wow.
It would be that New York Giants team that we saw on Sunday Night Football just 2 or 3 weeks ago that the Browns beat pretty handedly. So, the NFC East making it interesting, and you can watch that game on WKYC Channel 3.
Right.
But that's going to do it for us here tonight. He's Nick Camino. I'm Ben Axelrod. Stay tuned. We'll have you covered on all the latest from the Cleveland Browns. March into the playoffs next week.